I'd like to welcome everyone to our electronic regional council meeting on December the 15th, 2021. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Regional Council is practicing physical distancing. I am present in the council chambers along with Councillors Jowett and Galloway, and other members are participating electronically. I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather virtually today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. I'd now ask the clerk to do roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Erb.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Galloway.
Present.
Councillor Harris.
I'm present.
Councillor Jaworski.
Present.
Councillor Jowett.
Present.
Councillor Kiefer.
Present.
Councillor McGarry.
Present.
Councillor Nowak.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Strickland.
Here.
Urbanovic.
Present.
Regrets from Councillor Lawrence. Thank you, Chair.
And I'll turn my mic on too. I would now entertain a motion to reconvene in open session. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor McGarry, seconded by Councillor Kiefer. Please use your icons to vote. That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we now have a COVID presentation. I would call on Dr. Wong to give a COVID update, and then Vicki Murray will talk to us about vaccines. Welcome, Dr. Wong. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. Good evening, councillors. I hope you're well. So if we go to the first slide, thank you, Kathy. So I'll start with my key messages. One, the Omicron situation is evolving rapidly in our region, throughout Ontario and across the country. We expect Omicron to spread extensively in Ontario and Waterloo region and become the predominant strain within a week. I appreciate this is another time of uncertainty and challenge for our community. Residents can take actions now to reduce their risk and help protect their loved ones. I am strongly advising members of the public to do two things. One, get your third dose of the vaccine as soon as you are eligible. Now that's 84 days after your second dose. And reduce your social contacts now. Next slide, please. The emerging evidence that we have on Omicron is that it is much more transmissible than the Delta variant. Currently, it is estimated that Omicron is infecting 4 to 8 times as many people as Delta did. This graph on the slide from the Ontario Science Table shows the growth of a proxy indicator for the Omicron variant among the COVID-19 cases that are currently being diagnosed in Ontario. As you can see, it is displaying exponential growth, which is why the province anticipates it will become the predominant variant very soon. Our local wastewater is also showing a rapid drop in the presence of the Delta variant, which means there is another variant, without a doubt, Omicron, replacing it. Wastewater signals are matching what we're seeing through our COVID-19 case numbers. We are seeing an increasing number of outbreaks, most of which are occurring in schools and workplaces because of the increasing number of school-age children and those of working age who are being impacted. In response to the rapid growth of Omicron, we are increasing our vaccination efforts, and Vicki Murray, our vaccine lead, will have more information on that in her presentation. Next slide, please. Vaccination and following public health precautions will be, again, the cornerstones of our response to Omicron and will help preserve our health system capacity and save lives. Although 2 doses still appears to be much better than none in protecting against severe disease with Omicron, emerging evidence suggests that 2 doses of vaccine is not very protective against infection itself. So many people who have had 2 doses of vaccine will still become infected when they come into contact with Omicron. The good news is that evidence is also showing that 3 doses substantially boosts a person's immunity against Omicron and will maximize their protection against severe disease. Next and last slide, please. Omicron will be a provincial wave, which will require a provincial approach. Yesterday, Dr. Moore indicated this, and that he would like to see a consistent approach across the province in regards to additional measures that may be required, beyond the ones that have already been recommended. Local medical officers of health are continuing to work closely with the province on the provincial approach. Residents can take actions now to reduce their risk and help reduce the risk for their loved ones. For individuals, when you are eligible, get your 3rd dose right away. Reduce all non-essential social contact now. Wear a well-fitting, well-constructed mask and keep it on indoors. Maintain physical distance with others. Avoid crowded environments and make sure indoor spaces are well ventilated. And for workplaces, please enable your employees to work from home if feasible, as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wong. Colleagues, I'm in your hands, but I'm going to suggest that we hear from Vicki Murray, and then both Dr. Wong and Vicki will be here to answer your questions. So, Vicki, welcome. Unless we don't have Vicki. We don't have Vicki. So I'm going to go to questions, and I'll ask Dr. Wong to pinch hit on vaccines if those are your questions. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair Redmond, and that was in fact my question. I'm hearing from people who are eager to get their 3rd dose that they're experiencing some frustration with the website and with the process. And I did just look, and at 9:30 there's an hour wait to get onto the website. Do we have any advice that we can offer to people about how they should be booking their appointments to sort of minimize these frustrations?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Clark. So, yes, bookings have been very popular since the province announced, actually not long ago, that 50 plus would be opened as of this Monday, and now today that 18 plus will be opened as of next Monday, and that some places could also go ahead on Fridays, pharmacies that is. Our regional vaccine clinics are quite popular, but residents may not be aware that we have many, many pharmacy options available in our community, and that they also, are getting increased supply from the province, and they're opening up more appointments as we speak. This is going to be an all hands-on effort from all health partners from across the system, including our very, very valuable pharmacy and primary care offices who have been in this vaccine rollout with us from the beginning and who continue to step up to help improve access for residents. I would also encourage residents to look at the list of pharmacies that are offering a vaccine. There's a link on our website. They go directly to a government list that's kept updated, and they could, put in their postal code and find locations near them. And oftentimes the pharmacies will have wait lists, but then the people get contacted very quickly once pharmacy has supply. And of course, doctors' offices are also ramping up. And I'm not sure if Vicky has arrived yet. I think she might have some technical difficulties, but we are also, as per our press release this morning, we're ramping up as quickly as we can. And, as per our press release, we've opened up more availabilities and are working to open up even more.
Thank you. That's
Councillor
very
Clark.
helpful.
Sorry.
I was just saying that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't think Vicky Murray is joining us. We don't see her in the waiting room. So, Dr. Wong, we will let you just continue to answer questions. Councillor Pravanovich.
Thanks very much, Chair Redmond, and thanks, Dr. Wong, for a rather sobering update as we go into the holiday season. First question is just as a follow-up to Councillor Clark's questions. I mean, as we go into the coming days and the holidays, I know there is that anxiety to try to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. Do we know, what, or are we ramping up in terms of being able to remain open over the holiday season and look at additional locations potentially over and above what we have presently, both in Cambridge and at the Kitchener-Waterloo site in
Boardwalk.
West Side.
Boardwalk.
Yeah, Boardwalk. Thank you. It was just not coming out. It's been a long day.
Yes. So we are going to have a drive-through at Bigamans. We're going to stand up pop-up clinics. We are really going out all out and working in partnership with our healthcare partners, because we need everyone working together to really maximize availability of vaccine appointments across the healthcare system for our residents. We're also going to be calling on partners such as business partners who may be able to immunize their own employees to help us get the vaccine out. We're speaking with our post-secondary institutions, for clinics that they may be able to run for their students, things like that. We're reaching out. We're working, closely with our partners again. We want to open up availability as much as we can to protect people as quickly as we can. But there's just one thing I'd like to also mention is we cannot rely on the vaccine itself. We cannot rely on the vaccine alone. That's what I meant. Yes, the vaccine is going to be one of the cornerstones of our response and is really important at helping to prevent severe outcomes, especially among those that are older. That's very important. And so it's obviously crucial as a component of our response, but we also need to do everything that we can, all of us, to try to slow the spread as well by reducing where we can our non-essential social contacts. That in combination with the vaccine is what is going to get us through this. So the importance of that, as well as the vaccine initiative. Thanks.
So
Well,
excuse me, Councillor Ravanovich, I'm pleased to say Vicky Murray is with us, and probably nobody is more excited than Dr. Wong. So unless your question is specifically for Dr. Wong, you can either direct one to Vicky, or we can get Vicky to give us an update on vaccines. It's your call.
So my second question is actually a Dr. Wong question, so I'll ask it and then I'm done with questions. Dr. Wong, the second question is around the issue of masking. And, you talk about well-fitting and so on mask. Certainly the information increasingly is that, certainly some of this spread that's occurring is airborne and not simply coming through other means. And I'm wondering whether or not we really should be urging people to look at a higher level mask. And when I ask that, I mean, as high as N95 or not necessary to go there, because certainly that's a question that I'm getting from residents. So I'm wondering if you can.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for that question. So residents do have a choice now, especially with the greater availability of Canadian-made respirators, N95s, KN95s, those types of masks which are grouped together as respirators. So, residents can choose between high quality non-medical mask or medical masks that are also in a lot greater supply these days, or Canadian-made respirators. Have passed Canadian standards and things like that. So there is much greater choice for residents. We do know that masks like medical masks and respirators, they technically have greater filtration. So some people may feel more comfortable with that. The important thing to sort of keep in mind is that two of the most important things are fit and comfort and breathability. So, you can wear a mask with technically excellent filtration or higher filtration, but if you don't wear it properly, for example, a medical mask that isn't snug against your face and that has gaps on the sides that can easily, that are pretty big, that's not going to be as good as if you have something, even if it's not a medical mask, but that fits snugly on your face. Respirators can be more difficult to breathe out of. Some people have more difficulty in wearing them for longer periods of time. So that's something that if they don't find it comfortable, they may not be able to wear it as long as they need to. So, but for other people, respirators can fit really well and they may be comfortable in them. So the important thing, we do have some information on our website, and that talks about what you need to look at, regardless of any of the three types of masks that I mentioned. And also, today there was some guidance that came out from Public Health Ontario that we will be reviewing. I haven't had a chance. I think it came out late today. But that talks about the fact that, with the emerging evidence that we're seeing with Omicron, there is a concern about the potential for more aerosolized spread. We always knew that was, possible with the other variants in crowded places and closed spaces. But there is a concern about the potential for more aerosolized spread due to the fact that it's so much more transmissible than Delta was. And so they've come out with some updated guidance, and we'll definitely be taking a look at that and, updating any guidance that we may have for the public. But right now we do have some guidance on our website. And overall, the takeaway is, choose a high quality mask, make sure that it fits snugly on your face, and make sure it's one that you can actually wear comfortably for longer periods of time. And the other thing to do with the masks that's really, really important is when we talk about, what the masks are really for is just to, make sure that obviously they can prevent droplet spread, which is still, a part of the spectrum of spread. But if they're as part of the multi-layered approach to preventing the potential for aerosolized spread or the greater risk of aerosolized spread that we may see in Omicron, you need to try to minimize the time that you spend in crowded environments and try to maximize the time that you spend in well-ventilated places. So the ventilation is a really important layer in addition to the masks, in addition to the distancing and keeping gatherings small. So all of that are multiple layers. But yes, the evidence continues to evolve as we know more about COVID, and with the different strains as well, there can be differences. And so, thank you for the question.
So Councillor Schatz and Erb, you have your hands up. Are you amenable to hearing Ms. Murray give the vaccine update, and then I will come to you? Jim, you're good with that?
I vote.
Okay, thank you. Vicki, thank you for joining us. You have the floor.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry, it sounds like I might have missed my opening a few minutes back, but thank you for taking a moment to listen tonight on what we're doing for vaccines. I know you've all had a very long day. Over the past 3 days, as you know, the COVID landscape for us has changed significantly due to the spread of Omicron. And today, the government announced they're rapidly accelerating booster dose rollout to protect Ontario's progress in the fight against COVID-19. As we continue to learn more about Omicron variant, it is believed that a third dose offers additional protection against the Omicron variant and can further increase protection against severe illness and hospitalization. As Dr. says, it is not our only thing that we need to do, but certainly it is something we can do to protect our population. The Region of Waterloo Vaccine Task Force has been working on initiatives the past 3 days to increase our capacity in conjunction with partners across the region. Since this Saturday, we have already moved output of vaccine to almost 4,000 doses a day. This has been achieved by combining efforts of our primary care partners, community pharmacies, and the regional vaccine clinics. Going forward, it will take everyone in our community to work together with all hands on deck to be able to vaccinate the approximately 350,000 people who will be now eligible for third dose effective Monday, December 20th. Plans and discussions with businesses and hospitals, along with all our partners, are taking place in order to provide as many opportunities for vaccination as possible across the region. Some of the initial ramp-up strategies would include additional appointments at Pine Bush, including increasing to 7 days a week where possible. We're reopening the hockey hub model at Binghamton's to utilize the efficiency of that innovative model. At the moment, we are not looking at drive-throughs at Binghamton's. We really want to look at models and opportunities that maximize output as quick as possible. And although I love drive-throughs, they are a little slower with output. So we're going to work on the hockey hub model there. We're considering restarting the vaccine bus, and that's specific to provide outreach and vaccination opportunities in some of our high priority communities. I've been working with the local hospitals to plan staff vaccination clinics at the hospitals. We've been changing some of our school catch-up clinics to COVID vaccine clinics. We're working with primary care to support their ramp up. We're also supporting the ramp up with community pharmacies who have already maxed or started getting up close to 3,000 doses a day. We're re-engaging with businesses and looking at business-based vaccination. Of course, we're working with our long-term care and retirement home partners and looking at congregate care settings to optimize their vaccination distribution. Absolutely, other ideas and other initiatives that we're taking a look at, but honestly, they're a bit premature for me to share a lot of details about them tonight. Bottom line is we have to be innovative and collaborative if we're going to meet the needs of our community for quick Omicron vaccination. A lot more work and planning lies ahead, and I will definitely continue to share details as this work progresses. I'd like to note that as soon as new appointments are decided on, they are added into our booking system, and the current trend is that they are immediately booked. At this time, we are not able to keep up with the demand for appointments, and I believe that sentiment is being echoed with pharmacy and family physicians as well. This is a distinct change from even a week ago when we had lots of appointments available, and so the landscape has definitely changed in the last couple of days. We will continue to provide updates as plans progress. And I appreciate the urgency of the situation and thank everyone for their patience as we work on ways to ramp up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicki. Councillor Schatz.
Thank you. Thank you, Vicki. I know that you've had plans in place. You've been working, you and your team, to get plans in place in this eventuality, and here we are. So thank you for the pre-work that you've done to make this possible. My question is just quickly, do you have any concerns with supply as you're ramping up?
At the moment, we have been assured that vaccine supply is not an issue. I would tell you the biggest challenge for me to ramp up is the human resources, the people to be able to run the clinics. And that includes all jobs in the clinics. It's not just the immunizers, it's the frontline admin staff, and it's the leaders to be able to lead each clinic. So that is going to be our biggest challenge.
Councillor Schatz? Yep.
If I could just follow up on that, what about volunteers? Are you looking for volunteers again? I haven't thought that far yet, I'll be honest. So quite possibly there'll be opportunities for volunteers. Like I said, it's going to be all hands on deck if we're going to vaccinate 350,000 people as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schatz. That's good. Councillor Erb.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. My one question was on supply, which Vicki has answered. And just to Dr. Wong and to Vicki and all the people involved, I'm sure it feels overwhelming. It feels like this is all starting over again in such a short period of time. And so very, very best to you, and coming at a time of the year when people are tending to let their guard down because of the coming holidays and being with family. So thank you so much for all of the work that you're putting into making this hopefully work for us. And it sort of feels like this sudden surge in Omicron came on us much, much faster than the original COVID or Delta. And to me, I'm wondering if that's what's slowing down, or not slowing down, but people having difficulty getting appointments, because all of a sudden this thing has just peaked in 24 or 48 hours compared to what it has done before. And our knowledge and awareness of it is much more significant than it was then. And so I think just this rapid increase in the last 24 hours is putting a considerable strain on the online system and the human resources system. And so I hope the community appreciates that and understands what the changes have been in such a short period of time. So thank you for what you're doing, and we want people to get vaccinated as soon as possible, but as long as they understand how this has changed in 48 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erb. Councillor Kiefer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello, Dr. Wong and Vicky. Good to see you both. Thanks for the update. My question has to do with if you have any updates on testing kits for, in particular for people that have kids at home. I'm getting a lot of questions from parents saying, is there something available? Like, where would one get anything like that, or is there anything like that available? And for both adults and for kids.
Sure. No, thank you for the question. So the government announced this afternoon. I have to admit, I still have to read all the materials from that because I haven't been able to review it all completely. But I understand the government announced this afternoon that they are launching the distribution of rapid test kits for people over the holiday season, and they're going to start with areas in the province that are considered the highest risk right now, and they're going to add more places as they go on. So they already started actually today, I believe, in some parts of the GTA, and they're going to be offering them at places where a lot of the public, will be, like in malls and in markets and retail outlets and things like that. And so it's part of the government's initiative to try to get more rapid tests available to the general public. There continues to be rapid tests that are provided free of charge directly from Ontario to Ontario Chambers of Commerce, and they can be distributed to workplaces. But I understand that there's a huge demand right now for those tests, and so there's a longer wait than there has been before for those tests. And the third thing is Ontario has just, released a kit of 5 rapid tests for every student across Ontario. So a total of about 11 million tests that are going home with students over the holiday period as well. So it's part of their initiative to push out a rapid testing to make it more available to the general public as part of an additional layer that people can take to help protect themselves. My advice is always that it's great to have this additional layer, but don't forget to practice the other layers as well. Don't take off your masks or stop, practicing your public health precautions just because you took a rapid test and it's negative that morning. You have to, for best protection, you have to continue to take all the measures as much as you can together. But it's part of the province's push to make that available as another tool in the toolbox to help people self-identify through their rapid testing whether they're positive. And if they are, that's considered a presumptive positive, and they're asked to get a confirmatory test at a testing center. So that availability, in conclusion, it should be increasing quickly as we approach the holiday season.
Vicky, did you want to add anything to that? Okay, thank you. Councillor Kiefer.
Can I just follow up? Thank
Sure.
you, Dr. Wong, for that information. That's very helpful. Of course, the government sometimes, as we all know, doesn't work very quickly. And I was just wondering if there's a place that individuals could go to, purchase these kits as well. I mean, I'm familiar with what the chamber distribution is, but that's mostly for employees and companies of companies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there are online retailers and pharmacies that do sell those rapid tests at a cost. Okay. For the free rapid tests, though, Ontario is advertising some locations starting right now, but they're in the GTA at present. So, it's hoped that they'll continue to expand the places where they will be distributing those out to the general public. My understanding is they are working really hard on trying to increase availability of rapid testing for the public, but a bit similar to the vaccine where, not long ago, like a week ago, we had definitely more capacity than we had people coming in for their dose. Now the landscape has changed very significantly, and everybody wants a rapid test at the same time, and that is, it's taking some time to I think distribute a lot of the tests, but I know they're trying to get those out as quickly as they can.
Just as a matter of interest, and you probably know this anyways, or you mentioned it. People who ask for an appointment at let's say the Pine Bush or the KW Center, they have gotten their appointments. But I also checked with a pharmacy, and the pharmacist was able to book my appointment sooner. So I'm booked for this Friday. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Wong, to your team. I know seemed like it was only yesterday Councillor Galloway was asking about how we're going to go about shutting these mass vaccination clinics down, and here we go, ramping them back up. And so lots on the go, of course. My question, I guess, arises with regards to children now. Obviously, the province announced today that boosters will be available for those everyone 18 and over. I'm booked on Monday at 5, and through my local pharmacy, which is great. I did jump online and get my kids vaccinated, look for an appointment, that is, and I was really hoping there'd be more options and more school locations. And I'm just wondering, now with the booster and the rush to do that, there's that vulnerable group that I think, what is the percentage right now of children vaccinated 5 to 12? Is it 30 to 50% roughly?
It was about 35% today.
35%. So obviously we want to get those numbers up. And I know you disclosed the fact that you're still working on some things, but is there a plan to continue to work with the school boards, perhaps even over the holidays, to keep those full-day school vaccination clinics open? I know there's only 4 of them available right now. There was obviously a bit of a gap between December 4th and now. But is there a plan to work with the school boards? Are they going to make their facilities available to continue these mass vaccination clinics for children aged 5 to 12?
Yeah, I'm glad to take this question. Absolutely. Where the school boards are some of our closest partners in vaccine rollout, and they have been fabulous to work with in setting up the schools for our use. To give you more information, we did have more school-based clinics for children over the holidays. They weren't filling up, and we needed third dose appointments. So we needed to adjust for third dose appointments. It's a fine balance, though, Councillor Harris, that we are really trying to carefully manage, because I would agree, first doses for children is also very important. So we're trying to keep everything on the table at the same time as ramping up as quickly as we can. And as you know, this is truly just turned around in 48 hours. So we're in the very early stages.
Is there anything else that public health can do in conjunction with our school boards to further, inform? Again, I really think, it's unfortunate that we're not getting the pickup that we would have liked to, again, encourage. I do think, I didn't see any schools in Waterloo. There were 2 in Kitchener, 1 in Cambridge, 1 in Wellesley, nothing in Woolwich, Wilmot. I guess if you build it, we hope that they will come, but I just think that I pulled my kids out of school and brought them to the regional headquarters, but that's not always easy for people to do. Thinking around the holidays, families may have more access to be able to take their kids. So, I hope that I hope that changes, I guess, and I'll leave that with you. And I guess to Carl or to Councillor Kiefer's comment about his rapid testing of the province is going to make it available at the LCBOs. So you can go get your favorite bottle of wine and grab your COVID antigen test, over the holidays.
We're assuming the children aren't going to the LCBO to get the test, right? Dr. Wong.
No, we want them to go get the vaccine.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll just quickly add is it's always a balance, as Vicky said, because when you have, there are finite human resources, and we're always, obviously looking to make sure that we don't forget about accessibility and neighborhoods with whom we've worked in the past and found, it might be, important to ensure that we have a greater presence, based on vaccination rates in the past and things like that. But there is going to be a balance because there's over 200 schools in the region, and we it's not necessarily a very efficient model, right? And we can go do a lot more people in a lot shorter time through some of these larger clinics. So point well taken, but I think it's constantly a balancing act to try to balance accessibility, which is important, as you said, but also the need to try to deliver very efficiently with a finite number of human health resources.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Wong and your team. Really appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Councillor Galloway.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to say to Vicky, I'm very disappointed that there's not going to be a drive-through at Binghamton because I won't be able to work out in the parking lot, letting people out after their 15 minutes. Although I suspect the weather may not be quite so pleasant this time around. But anyways, the question I had has to do with the dashboard. The dashboard's been modified to have the third doses now included by the various age categories. And I'm curious whether or not whether it's the World Health Organization or Health Canada or whoever may have set some kind of parameters as far as, I don't know if herd immunity is still a thing or not, but we were looking at 90% for some kind of benchmark for first and seconds. Is there a benchmark for thirds as well, for boosters that's similar, or has that not necessarily been developed yet?
Dr. Wong?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Councillor Galloway. Thank you. It hasn't been developed yet because this is so new. We did have some evidence that for those that are older and, it had been a while since their second dose, that they would likely need boosters or third doses. But with Omicron, that changed the game. And it's something we want to give out to many more people just to, boost the immunity against Omicron. And fortunately, the studies are showing that, yes, this third dose really kicks up that immunity against this specific variant, and especially for severe disease, really reduces the risk for that. And so it's changed. And now, like, even the definition of what is fully vaccinated, right? Ontario is going to be reviewing that in the context of Omicron and the vaccine rollout to see, will that be changed later? So that's still evolving. The thing I could say about herd immunity is, we are still aiming to try to reach 90% of the overall population being immunized. And, we might not quite get there, but the closer we can get to that, the better that will be. And the one last thing I'll just mention is we have one of the highest rates in the province right now for immunization of children aged 5 to 11. So, so it's definitely something that we want to try to, maintain, but it's going to be a little slower because those that really wanted the vaccine, I think, have gotten them. And so now, we're just hoping that with the upcoming holidays, parents will have some more time. And if they haven't gotten their child immunized now, they'll have some more opportunities over the coming couple of weeks.
Councillor Galloway?
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Urbanovich, I saw your hand up and then it went down. Did you have a question? Or did
No,
you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
So, Dr. Wong and Vicky, thank you very much. I know you were on a call at 7:30 this morning, so long days, and thank you very much for all you do and for your teams. And this continues to be Mr. Toad's wild ride, so thank you very much for helping us navigate it.
Thank you so much, Vicky.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can take the rest of the night off, ladies.
Okay.
We have no petitions. We actually had 3 delegations register. I just would like to point out that Wendy Campbell, the CEO of Food Bank Waterloo Region, was coming to give an annual update, and she has moved her visit with us until January. Thank you. So we have 2 delegates, and I'm sure I don't have to give this caution, but as a standard, I'd like to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation in tonight's meeting. Please leave your video and camera turned off and your microphone and audio muted until you're called upon to speak. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal of the meeting: interrupting council members, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about council staff or others, turning on your mic at an inappropriate time, or hate speech or defamatory comments. So the first delegation, it is going to talk about land use. And before I welcome the delegation, we're going to hear from staff about the regional official plan. So I would call on Rod Regier to provide some opening remarks. Welcome, Mr. Regier.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Redmond. Just a couple of remarks, and then I'd just like to indicate to Council and the public that we have our planning team, Director Daniel DeFields and Brenna McKinnon, as well as a couple of representatives of our consulting team on this project with us to make comments and provide answers to questions that Council may have. So we've been working for the last couple of years on an update to the regional official plan to accommodate a population of over 920,000 people and 470,000 jobs by 2051. And we had some significant level of discussion in last month as part of a council conversation and community input on the proposed growth scenarios. Growth scenarios that were initially put forward in June for discussion. This has been part of an ongoing consultation effort. We have had 9 municipal working group meetings, multiple meetings with each municipality, over 650 respondents to online surveys, 12,000 people have viewed our region of Waterloo ROP site, open houses, webinars, and symposiums, all available to the public. The regional methodology to complete the land needs assessment has followed our provincial guidance, and we've been in ongoing consultation with the province on the approach. We've taken Council's direction in November, done some work on how to get that, how to fulfill Council's expectations, and are coming back with recommendation that we proceed with 3 separate LNAs. They're going to take some additional work, and as we had originally anticipated, only 1 scenario to be given the full LNA treatment in November. But we feel that this is accomplished. This is easily accomplished by the end of the first quarter of next year. In essence, the 3 scenarios are moderate community expansion with 60% intensification and 60 persons and jobs per hectare in greenfield areas. Another scenario with no community area expansion scenario, and that needs to be determined because in terms of its percentages, because the model's very nuanced and will take a little bit of work to nail down. And then an excess land scenario, excuse me, which we were asked to consider with 70% intensification and 70 persons and jobs per hectare. Each of these scenarios would accommodate the forecasted population and employment growth. The first one, the council and community have discussed. The second is a hybrid approach, which will require further analysis, as I mentioned. And the 70 and 70 scenario would require the region to put a prohibition on development of a portion of the land already in the urban area before 2051. We would suggest that setting a growth scenario lower than 60% intensification and 60 persons and jobs per hectare would be really inconsistent with the region's public policy objectives, namely our strategies on climate action, the conservation of agricultural resources, and the development of a compact transit supportive community. I would like to remind council and the community that whatever scenario we choose, these will be minimum targets. We have many tools available to help the region outperform these targets. Stage 2 ION, for example, will drive intensification in the central transit corridor. Active transportation investments, which council has prioritized, will also move us towards our targets. And design standards for compact transit-oriented communities are going to be important to help us achieve our goals. The ROP amendments will also include additional policy recommendations that will reinforce council's and the community's strategies in these areas. These will be brought forward to council and the community in 2022. In summary, we need direction from council to proceed with further analysis and public engagement, and our planning team is available to answer questions that council may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Regier. I would remind council we have some delegations, so I hope we will have questions of the delegations, and after the delegations, we will deal with the report if you want to have questions of staff. So the first delegation is Dawn Parker Kitchener, Land Use Needs Projections, Land Budgeting. Dawn, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. And I will try to share my screen. If that doesn't work, I believe you also have my PowerPoint presentation, and I can just speak to that. Just a second.
Okay, and you have 5 minutes. Dawn, welcome.
Yes. I'm a professor. I should certainly be able to set this to presentation mode quickly, but
I was going to say, so far, so good. A lot of people can't even share their screen, so you're already a step ahead.
All right, just a second. Okay, thank you very much, Chair Redmond and councillors. I will try to be as brief as possible. I would like to note some potential conflicts of interest or lack of them. I'm a resident homeowner and I own a home 500 to 800 meters from an LRT stop. I'm not a professional planner or a registered professional planner. I do have previous and in-review research collaborations with the region of Waterloo and other municipalities, and I'm a PhD economist, but I am not an economic consultant. So I support staff's request to move forward with further analysis that includes a defensible, feasible minimum intensification target that doesn't require designation of excess lands. I want to note there's probably many models that would fit that, not just one solution. But I encourage them to follow best practices, fully consider the match between household sizes, unit mix, and livability, making sure that we're not putting family households in one-bedroom apartments with no green space. Use the full suite of models and data available. I have more details in the next slide. Currently, all of the analysis groups together low-rise, high-rise, and medium-rise density without distinguishing between height, low-rise, medium-rise, and height, We need to think about separating these categories, especially because of the high demand for low-rise intensive housing. The main point is to be fully open, transparent, and replicable. And across the board, there isn't yet enough information in consultant reports, whether that's the Hemson reports or local reports, to replicate them. A quick way of thinking about this, yes, this is what I was doing earlier, is the technical challenge on the baking challenges, where they don't give full information. How much vanilla and how many tablespoons of butter do you need in that creme patisserie? We want a full recipe model. So I do have a few comments from reviews to date. I see housing supply in terms of building permits used as a proxy for demand. I think this isn't not correct and further isn't necessary because the region has outstanding land transaction data as part of monitoring metrics. I have further slides, which I won't go through, that demonstrate some of the data available, transaction and assessment data, QAR's home price index dashboard. They can also do special compilations. My group has come up with statistical models on the associations between transaction prices, housing characteristics, neighborhood characteristics, and household characteristics. And I've also connected your staff with CMHC around their developing urban sim model. Hopefully we'll also have more census data. So editorializing, and I'll be brief, anyone could follow up with me on this. I think we can't go with a tall and sprawl scenario. We need to consider missing middle housing comprehensively as part of this official plan review. We're already on our way there to some extent with the new residential bylaw. I have some creative ideas of parking. It is a great idea to imagine we're going to have instant transit-oriented development, but we need transitions that might involve incentivizing or subsidizing multi-level parking so that we can repurpose surface parking. I do support the elimination of exclusionary zoning, along with Jennifer Keesmaat, Tim Hudak, many other people calling for this. I would love to see high density, low rise residential everywhere, but held to that, and a high FSR for greenfield development. We may need government or nonprofits financing to get there. So again, I'll try to wrap up here, but we know economic best principles, safety first under uncertainty, value of new information, understanding housing market diversity, open science and policy analysis. So let's embrace those principles. I'm here to help. We have brilliant minds in Waterloo region, very quantitative. They're also out there ready to help us come up with creative, feasible solutions. Thank you for your time.
Dawn, thank you so much. And just to reiterate, you did say that staff have these slides. I know they went through them fairly quickly. Your presentation?
I did.
Thank you.
They have the slides, and I've also provided with the clerk with a voiceover copy of the slides.
Thank you so much. If you could stop screen sharing.
Yes, I'm working on that.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, Councillor Verbanovich, do you have a question of the delegation?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Ms. Parker, for joining us this evening and for a very informative presentation. You said something towards the end around inclusionary zoning, and it just cut out for me at that moment, so I didn't quite hear it. I'm wondering if you can just repeat that.
Definitely. It was on the slide, but I didn't say it, that I support inclusionary zoning applied uniformly throughout the region. There are studies that show it's easy to demonstrate both in theory and reality that when we have limited inclusionary zoning, it creates perverse effects. We don't want a situation where people are building high rises exactly 800 meters outside the MTSA, and we have less affordable housing within our MTSAs, for instance. I support higher density, low rise residential zoning in all residential areas.
Okay, thanks for that input, particularly on the inclusionary zoning, because that is something that a number of us have already expressed and in fact made motions on and are advocating with the province. And I anticipate that now the rescheduled housing summit, which will be on January the 19th, as opposed to tomorrow, I anticipate that will certainly be a big topic of conversation at that session. So thanks again for coming in tonight and for sharing your slides with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you were very timely. So obviously you're no newbie when it comes to slide decks. So thank you very much for this information. Councillor Harris.
I wanted to follow up what she was saying there. So you support exclusionary zoning, correct?
No, I don't support exclusionary zoning.
Okay, so
I'm opposed to exclusionary zoning.
Oh, okay, good, because I was, okay, good, that's good. Well, I agree with you, so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for the clarification. We will now move to our next delegation, Kevin Thomason, Wilmot, Regional Official Plan Update and Revised Scenarios. Welcome, Kevin. You have the floor and 5 minutes.
Wonderful, thank you. Honorable Chair, Mayors, members of Council and guests. My name is Kevin Thomason and I'm the owner of 1115 Cedar Grove Road, Waterloo. I'm here tonight with good news and compliments. As you may remember, I recently appeared before Council along with numerous other community members and organizations to express serious concerns about the Regional Official Plan review, the lack of public consultation, and the need for far more ambitious scenarios, more consistent with our history of visionary planning and leadership. It is wonderful to see considerable progress on these concerns so quickly, and I applaud the staff and elected officials who have obviously been working day and night on this, like right now. The clarification that the land needs assessment is focused on an intensification-first approach and not the unsustainable urban sprawl being advocated by our Premier and so many land speculators is very reassuring, particularly with respect to our ability to meet our Paris Accord and climate change targets. The 3 new modified growth scenarios and the new approach of trying to address ambitions and outcomes rather than arbitrary numerical targets is a really smart way to address things. This approach and these 3 diverse proposed scenarios could give us a lot of latitude and flexibility on how to plan and guide our communities over the years ahead. As you've heard tonight, we have a unique opportunity in our region to leverage the knowledge and expertise of our universities, planning schools, and citizens for developing the optimal scenario using leading-edge science, data, and modeling. We must also integrate climate action policy as a foundational element of our official plan, such as being advocated for in the City of Toronto by accelerating the deployment of low-carbon buildings, better implementing the 4 Rs, reduce, reuse, recycle, and retrofit, enhancing the region's opportunities to be a carbon sink, increasing community resilience, and further improving our transportation goals. It is very reassuring to see in this report that staff will look for opportunities to increase the intensification of employment industrial lands. In fact, there is a coalition of community groups working on a webinar for later in January, focused on learning about innovative ideas for employment lands from visionary industrial planners in other provinces and countries. We'll keep you posted as this event comes together. Finally, it is fantastic to hear the commitment to public consultation and engagement in the new year. We look forward to helping to ensure all citizens throughout the region have a voice in determining so many future aspects of our communities in this regional official plan. Since our last council meeting on the regional official plan, Hamilton councillors voted with a strong majority of 13-3 for their boldest official plan scenario that would see no urban boundary expansion and will preserve thousands of acres of adjacent farmland for local food, groundwater recharge, and future generations to come. Hopefully we can be as progressive and not see our local farms destroyed. In conclusion, we have just 96 months to meet our Paris Accord commitments and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 50%. Our community is extremely concerned, and this official plan sets the stage for so much of our future. Thank you for listening to so many in our community, revising these scenarios to be more ambitious, and clarifying the next steps. We look forward to extensive public consultation in the months ahead and hope that Waterloo Region can continue its creative, bold, and visionary planning leadership with the thriving, sustainable urban and rural areas our future generations will require. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and you were right on point with your time. You actually have some time to spare. I see no questions, but thank you very much for coming in.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for this. I realize it's been a really long day, but kudos to staff and to everyone who's been involved in this. It's really heading in the right directions.
Oh, Councillor Harris, do you have a question of the delegation?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like you to add, when you say your address, though, you're over at, what are you, Paradise? You're in Paradise.
Sunfish Lake.
Sunfish Lake, yes, of course.
Yeah, it's strange. I live in Wilmot, but I have a City of Waterloo street address and a downtown Waterloo postal code. So go figure.
Sunfish Lake, it just sounds great.
It's so a region of Waterloo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and literally the back of my property is the Wellesley Township line as well. So I can throw a frisbee in about 3 different municipalities. So anyways, thank you, everyone. Keep up the amazing work.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'd also like to point out that Robin Brown, Director of Senior Practice Lead for Planning for the IBI Group Land Needs Assessment, had registered, canceled her delegation, but she has submitted comments which will be distributed by the clerk. So now, if there are no objections, I would like to pull forward the report that deals with the draft lands needs assessments. We've already heard from Mr. Regier, and I would open the floor up to colleagues who may have questions, and there is a recommendation for us to consider. Councillor Harris, was that why your hand was up?
I suppose I'll go first, Chair. Thank you. So, thanks, Chair Redmond. So as a member of the Regional Official Plan Steering Committee, I am concerned with the progress we've made in the public consultation piece as it pertains to the land needs assessment, which I believe is the foundation, the data that we will need in terms of making such an important decision this council will be making in submitting its regional official plan submission to the province. Obviously, they have set forward a very rigorous process, one that was established back, I believe, in 2020. We have ourselves set a process as to which we were going to establish and guide us through the regional official plan, one that I believe, frankly, we have frankly not followed ourselves. I want to reiterate the fact that I had made a motion or moved a motion with unanimous support of council on November 19th, which was unanimously endorsed by council, that give, frankly, very clear direction to our staff regarding the sequence for completion of the land needs assessment, and then thorough engagement of stakeholders, including local municipalities. I know my motion was supported by Mayor Verbanovic, and I know that lower tier municipalities have repeatedly been asked by the region and have asked for the land needs assessment in order to properly comment again on such a critical piece of, frankly, policy that this region will make that will impact housing affordability here in our community. So I obviously was very disappointed, frankly, to see that the staff report that's before us tonight frankly doesn't respect the direction that we, in fact, have given staff on November 9th. Again, the importance of housing affordability to the residents of our region. These decisions regarding growth scenarios should be informed by a proper land needs assessment undertaken in accordance with the approved provincial LNA methodology, one, again, that I don't believe we followed. We want, of course, a made in Waterloo region direction for where and how we grow. Is that desired outcome? I believe we also know it is our responsibility and highly advisable to put forward the Waterloo region plan to the province of Ontario on the basis of facts, statistics, and again, that sound lands need assessment. We've heard, obviously, various components of an LNA can be sequenced differently. But I believe that the province's methodology is very clear, and that we continue to need to engage with the public on this, as we've heard from presentations tonight. So, again, as a member of the steering committee, I am concerned about how late in the game we are in, knowing that this is due in July of next year, and that I will move a further recommendation, perhaps, Chair, and I'll let my other colleagues chime in on this, But I am concerned again with the position that we're in. We've had over 16 months, frankly, to come up with a proper land needs assessment that would justify and inform council and our stakeholders of the important decision that we have to make here in our community, that it will impact us for decades. So perhaps I'll leave the opportunity to chime in again on this one and wait for my other colleagues to make comment. But I will have a recommendation I would like to make as well.
Okay, well, Councillor Harris, there is no recommendation moved or seconded, and the one that is before us from staff is develop a draft land needs assessment using 3 modified growth scenarios described in a report dated December 15th, which is I think we're in receipt of. And then goes on to consult on 3 modified growth scenarios presented in the report with area municipalities, Indigenous communities, key stakeholders, on the broader regional community once the draft lands needs assessment is available for review, and report back to regional council on the results of the community consultation and recommend a preferred growth scenario with the final draft of land needs assessment. So can I just ask for clarification? Is it the timing of this recommendation that you would modify, or the sequence of the recommendations, or is it something completely different?
Yeah, how about I throw it out there, and then I guess my colleagues can decide for themselves. But I would recommend that the report that's before us tonight be referred back to staff, and that staff be directed to complete council's original direction that we had passed unanimously on November 19th, and then we'll return to Planning and Public Works Committee with that information. I would like to include, written confirmation from the province endorsing our approach, and that the updated version of this report contained the learnings from the lands need assessment. That's what I'm asking for.
Okay, Mr. Regier, can you comment on, I guess, the achievability and how the recommendation that Councillor Harris is putting forward is different than the one that was in the staff report?
Well, through you, Chair Redmond, yes, I think the key difference is that if I understood the direction from council earlier, we were to really look at up to 6 different scenarios for a land needs assessment, and the resource requirements to do that was going to push us out quite a bit further than the time we had available to us. However, I am going to pass the question over to Brenna McKinnon, and she can introduce our consulting team, who's responsible for actually grinding through those numbers in order to get to the 3 scenarios that we're going to do a detailed land needs assessment on. So over to you, Brenna, and our consultants.
Welcome, Brenna. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay. It just sounds very quiet, and maybe it is because everybody else in my house has of course gone to bed. Yes, thanks everybody for obviously sticking around, and your interest in this project, of course, is it is a big one. So we Patty and Jamie into the call tonight to answer questions about the methodology and the process that we are undertaking. The direction as we from council in November was to return to council with a land needs methodology or a land needs assessment, which is what we're seeking direction on. So the proposal before you, or the recommendation before you, is to essentially run that land needs assessment on 3 scenarios versus 1 as we had indicated in November. And that is what will take time. So if you refer to the report, there is an appendix to that report that lays out the process that we have undertaken, with a series of check marks, and then moves to the second part. So we are in an LNA process currently. the evaluation of scenarios is part of that process. So we're not in front of something or we're not behind something. We are actually in something. And maybe I'll turn it over to Jamie to explain.
Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. So I guess I'm just want to understand if you want me to explain further on the question, or because there's a lot obviously involved with the methodology. So I want to make sure I'm providing a pointed response to the question. So maybe if I could ask Councillor Harris or somebody to just make sure I'm giving you pointed direction on what you'd like me to answer for you.
Councillor Harris?
Finding my unmute button. Well, again, what we had asked for, or I had asked for in my motion back on November 19th, was to receive a lands need assessment. That's a key fundamental piece of this entire process that we frankly have not seen as of yet, which should determine, frankly, the growth scenarios, not develop a land needs assessment that endorses a desired outcome or a growth scenario that we've selected. Again, I think I echo our lower tier municipalities' call for information in order for them to provide proper feedback. In this process, and we have not provided that to them. We have not provided that to our stakeholders. We've had 16 months. Again, I'm a member of the steering committee, and I have not been told, and nor was I told, or we were told on November 19th, that my request of the land need assessment wouldn't be achievable due to time. So I'm just not sure why we're sitting here today asking for a similar motion, frankly, that I've asked for and was endorsed by council, and you're telling me now that it's not feasible because of time. So what I'm asking for, again, is that you complete the request of council on November 19th and come back to Planning and Works Committee when you've prepared that report.
Okay. So maybe I can just provide a response through you, Madam Chair. So the work that's been done to date has obviously carried out a number of different reports and technical components of the LNA. And that started with the long-term growth analysis report, the housing intensification strategy, the employment strategy, and then ultimately the growth scenarios evaluation study. And in that last study, that's where we provide our analysis of the 4 growth scenarios, and there's a analysis at the region-wide level of the ultimate land needs assessment for all of the 4 scenarios, and there's a detailed evaluation of each of those scenarios, which then ultimately arrived at scenario 2 being the preferred scenario. So the approach was initially to then work further at implementing the preferred scenario at a more localized level, which was where we would get into a more detailed analysis of the land use assessment at that area municipal level and the policy area level. So my understanding now is the direction is to still move forward with that work, but move forward with that work looking at 3 scenarios rather than 1. So that's how I understand this process that we're undertaking now. The details with respect to the land use assessment are in my opinion, provided in all of the background reports that are out there in the public realm. There's also been additional information that's been provided to stakeholders as requested on the specifics of each of the land use assessment scenarios, getting into more technical analysis. I can say professionally that I feel like the approach that's being undertaken is a solid approach. It's consistent with the provincial methodology guidelines. I'm working in half of the municipalities across the Greater Golden Horseshoe at the upper tier and single tier level, carrying out land use assessments for those municipalities, working consistently with the province on a monthly and sometimes weekly basis on the methodology. In some cases, we're much further along with other municipalities, and we've been given direction from the province that we're moving in the right direction, that we're consistent with the provincial methodology. So I don't think there's any overall concerns about the overall methodological approach. There are obviously different ways to go about this process of moving forward. I think it's important to recognize that, as Brenna mentioned, we're still in the process of completing the land use assessment methodology and the outcome. So we're not finished yet. But if there's a different approach that council is seeking, that obviously is beyond what I'm here to talk about tonight. I'm here to talk about, the technical work and the ultimately the path forward in terms of what we've been directed to do.
Forgive me, but I don't recall us, discussing the 6 land needs assessments. This is somewhat new news. It's in my opinion, 1 land needs assessment, and then those various growth scenarios, flow from that. I guess I'd ask you, Jamie, because you're working with other municipalities, is there scenarios to which other municipalities may not, in fact, meet the deadline imposed by the province?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, I would say that many of the municipalities out there in the Greater Golden Horseshoe are likely not going to meet the deadline that's been imposed by the province. Of the half of the GGH that I mentioned that I'm working with, only a few have actually only 2 that I'm aware of 2 to 3 have submitted their actual official plans for review to the province. We've received to date no responses yet back from the province on the submitted official plans. So and then the rest of the municipalities are still at various stages of completing their LNAs and their official plan reviews. Some are in a process where they will not complete their analysis until likely sometime in 2023. Some municipalities are still at the very early stages of this process. So I'd say relative to the other municipalities in the GGH, you're probably in about the middle of the pack.
Well, okay, I appreciate that. However, again, I believe that we've sent clear direction to staff, and now we're somewhat changing, that direction, or not fulfilling that original request given by this council. So I'll put a pause on there. I know there are other hands. We'll wait and go from there.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Bravanovich.
Thank you very much, Chair Redmond, and thank you, Councillor Harris, for raising this issue. I guess my questions are to at least to begin with to Mr. Regier. I'm struggling a little bit to understand how we got to this situation. I'm not a member of the working group like Councillor Harris and others are, and so what I'm reading and what I'm seeing causes me enough concern. And then when I hear that the members of the committee are even more concerned, that's troublesome for me. And so I'm really trying to understand, after council gave the direction that they did, how are we in this situation where we're running significantly behind, B, where we're this is back before us without the land needs assessment being done, and C, how are we going to deal with our lower tier municipalities? And I see several of my colleagues who represent lower tier municipalities here, and I know that certainly we and others have indicated to the region that we're not prepared to comment or discuss on any of the any scenarios until we have the land need assessment done first. So I'm wondering if you can respond to those 3 components.
Yeah, through you, Chair Redmond. I think that there is perhaps a misunderstanding here. There are multiple pieces of work that are part of the land needs assessment process that have already been undertaken and have been fully vetted with the area municipal planning colleagues. The process that we're undertaking now is to refine the land needs assessment and at a local level based on a set of growth scenarios. Now, the growth scenarios that we were asked to review at the November meeting, they're significant, and what we've done in this report is to put put some structure around them and incorporate both the high and the low end of it, as well as the median range. growth scenario as part of the development of the land needs assessment. Perhaps what I could do here is ask either Jamie or Patty to clarify for us what is involved in completing the land needs assessment process, because I think we don't see the tension between what we've done up to this point and what's being requested from council.
Mr. Kennedy, would you like to respond, or Jamie?
I can start if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie, sure.
Okay, so the primary next step for us to undertake really is to get into a localized analysis. So at the moment, we've carried out 4 different growth scenarios at the region-wide level, and our focus has primarily been at that region-wide level, looking at intensification targets and greenfield density and other broader growth plan targets. And that's a similar approach that's been undertaken for other 2-tier municipalities out there in the Greater Golden Horseshoe, like Durham Region, for example, and other examples out there as well. The next approach now is to allocate that growth to each of the local municipalities as well as by policy area. So which into the local municipalities, there's intensification targets that need to be looked at, as well as greenfield density targets. And it's those local influences that we want to address in more detail and ultimately report out on, because ultimately when we report back out on the details of the land needs assessment methodology and land needs outputs that specifically that Councillor Harris is asking for, what you're going to need to see is what are the details for each of the municipalities, because you're going to still need to understand, well, how does this affect my municipality? So you can't really, I don't think, fully form a conclusion on the final analysis without ultimately going through that detailed analysis at the local level. Then from there still needs to be a further analysis to look at, depending on the outcome of the needs analysis, whether a shortfall of land or if there's an excess amount of land, where are those shortfalls and excess lands to be identified at that local level? So that would be the next after we move forward with the preferred scenario. So the initial approach was to move forward with scenario 2 to provide this detailed analysis that I'm speaking of, and then from there move forward to look at potential location options for urban boundary expansion. We're now looking at the potential of multiple scenarios to evaluate this work. So I can leave it there, and we can, Patty or others can provide.
I'm going to intervene here just because I have other speakers, and Councillor Ravanovich, I will come back to you. However, we're getting dangerously close to 11 o'clock, so I need a motion to extend. It would be for 1 hour. Moved by Councillor McGarry, seconded by Councillor Foxton. Could you please use your icons to vote? That's carried. It's carried. Sorry, Carl. Councillor Ravanovich, back to you.
Thank you, Chair Redmond, and thanks, Jamie, for that response. I guess that I'm still perplexed a little because I'm not really getting a definitive answer around the issue of process, Mr. Regier, because there was very clear direction from council. We didn't hear concerns at that time around completing the land needs assessment first. We've heard concerns from the lower tier municipalities. We've heard concerns from the community that is the contemplated first step in the provincial process, and that it needs to be completed in order to do the other work, so that we're not presupposing an outcome and then trying to build the rationale for that outcome, but rather developing the base data and then determining options for us to consider beyond that. And this really concerns me because, this isn't a decision that, if this was a 1 or 2 year decision we were making, I wouldn't be concerned if the I shouldn't say I wouldn't be as concerned with the process appearing flawed. I would, and not following the direction the province appears to have given, whether we like it or not. I mean, that's a separate debate, I think. But this is a decision that's going to impact this region and each of our communities for the next 30 years. It will impact, quite frankly, how we develop. It will have a direct impact on the cost of housing going forward. And the decisions we make will impact us ultimately from an economic development point of view. And so I'm still trying to understand, how are we so late in the game, and why are we not following the process that we originally outlined?
I'm going to ask Mr. Lochner to weigh in, and then Mr. Regier, if you want to.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not hearing that at all. I'm hearing that from Mr. Cook, that the lands needs assessment has multiple components, that it's not something that's just starting, that it is already well underway. We've had many touch points and decision points along the way. In November, Council directed us to ensure that the lands need assessment was complete. I'm hearing staff come back and say, yes, we are doing that. And in fact, not just one lands needs assessment, but looking at the motion in front of us, lands need assessment using 3 modified growth scenarios. I'm also hearing concern about engaging the area municipalities. And I look at the next steps in the report. We will consult on each of the 3 modified growth scenarios. This is following the lands needs assessment. So let me go back. We'll develop a draft lands need assessment using 3 modified growth scenarios. I think that's what Council wants. Lands need assessment. And then we will consult on those 3 modified growth scenarios with the area municipalities, with Indigenous communities, which is key, with other key stakeholders in the broader community. Once that lands needs assessment is available for review. So once the lands needs assessment is available for review, we'll do the consultation with the area municipalities and others. And then we'll report back to Council and recommend a preferred growth scenario. So I believe we have common ground on do the lands needs assessment, consult with the area municipalities, stakeholders, developers, and so on, and then bring Council back the preferred growth scenario. I just want to check in with, Rod or Mr. Cook for clarity. Is that what is in fact is happening?
For you, Chair Redmond, that's correct. That's exactly what we're bringing forward to Council here with. I might add that we had Council also adopted a motion which asked us to consider a 70% intensification and 70 persons and jobs per hectare density target or designated greenfield areas. So that's why we've added that scenario to the package here that we're asking for clarity from Council on. You're absolutely correct. We were proposing to do this work. It's going to take a little bit of time, and we will bring it back. We'll engage our area municipal colleagues through the process, and we'll bring it back to Council for a decision when it's complete.
Well, thanks for those responses. I'll wait to see where Councillor Harris goes with this, but I remain concerned because the problem is that the scenarios that we want, or that we may want, in fact, to be looked at, is partially contingent on the completion of the assessment, and so it's very difficult to say we know what all those scenarios are if we don't know the information that's in the assessment, right? It's putting the cart before the horse. That was my concern in November. That was my council's concern, and so I'm voicing that, and the concern of other councils. And so I will wait to see where what Councillor Harris may be putting on the table.
So thank you, Councillor Ravanovich. I have 4 other speakers, but just before I recognize them, Jamie, can you confirm what Councillor Ravanovich has just said, and is it indeed a linear process? Because my sense is that Council is firmly of the view that the land needs assessment has to come first.
So as we've mentioned, there's multiple ways that you can conduct the land needs assessment. And the way we've conducted the land use assessments, we provided the broader level analysis at the region-wide level through 4 different scenarios, and then we've evaluated those 4 different scenarios to then provide a recommendation to move forward. And so I feel that we've provided enough information at this point in the growth scenarios report, as well as the other supporting documents that lead up to that report, as we've been discussing tonight, to make an informed decision on how to move forward with the 3 scenarios that are in front of you. I think if you had more information, the only more information that we could provide would be some additional information, I think, that would support the region-wide analysis that we've conducted to come up with our land use assessment conclusions. But we've evaluated the scenarios, and the report is quite comprehensive. I think what's missing and what will really be valuable to council is what are the local influences and the outcomes at the area municipal level that ultimately come out of the scenarios, whether it's 1 scenario or if it's 3 scenarios. I think that's really what you're going to be looking for. And then from there, there'll be more decisions to be made about where you're going to be looking to expand boundaries if ultimately that's the decision you go with. And not saying it is, or you may be looking to identify excess lands, but I think ultimately that's where the real local influences and details are going to become most pronounced, not at this point.
Thank you very much, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at this report and I'm listening to what's being said. And from my point of view, what we have before us here is a midterm report that we should be receiving for information, because all you're doing is telling us what you're going to do over the next few months and how you got to this point. I don't see that there's anything here we need to vote on as a recommendation other than to accept your report as information, because you're stating the end report is, and Councillor Banavik and others are correct. The lower tier municipalities are concerned about being heard, number 1, and number 2, they can't make their recommendations until the land needs assessment is done. So, I mean, my suggestion is this is basically a report for information. That's the way I see it.
Thank you for that clarity, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Harris, I'm going to go to Councillor Jaworski and Councillor Shantz because they haven't spoken on it yet. So, Councillor Jaworski, you're up next.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think maybe there's a fundamental misunderstanding of land needs assessment is because, I think there's a challenge there in terms of getting to the scenarios. If we look at it strictly from a City of Waterloo perspective, our intensification rates over the past 2 years are 87% and 90%. So any of these scenarios are completely irrelevant at this lower tier. And I've even toyed with the idea of, with Rod, of just sort of do the study on 70%, but just take City of Waterloo and what we're going to do out of it, because we're well above it. We're going to hit 100% soon. So it's not... any of these scenarios not relevant, and I know my staff would like to see the land needs assessment in terms of seeing to get an overall picture. But like I said, I think if we really boil it down to what's on the recommendation, the first item is really the recommendation of Councillor Harris. Granted with the different scenarios, but I'm not even sure any one of them are right at this point.
Again, Councillor Jaworski, thank you for the clarity of your comments. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I think I'm feeling much like Councillor Armstrong and Jaworski. As I recall, we were concerned about where the boundaries were going to shift. So with the different scenarios, we wanted to ensure that we had some input as to where those boundaries and where that growth would happen. From our township point of view, and I see Councillor Foxton nodding too, that Councillor Jaworski said they're going to hit 100% or 90%. And so with any of these scenarios, what is that going to look like for each individual municipality? From my point of view, that's what I was concerned with. And I agree with Councillor Armstrong that I think what's being done is what we asked for.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. And I guess what I'm struggling with, and we've all spent many hours in meetings today, so I don't mean to single myself out, but I guess, Councillor Harris, I'm trying to, in my mind, recall the difference between the November 19th report that you're talking about and the recommendation that's before us, which I would agree with Councillor Armstrong we could receive for information, because it seems to me those are the marching orders that we asked them to do.
Yeah, I mean, I can, maybe the clerk would pull up the November 19th resolution or motion that council passed, but, in a nutshell, council hereby directs that prior to any growth scenarios being brought before this council, which in fact is somewhat being done now in the report, for a decision that, one, the Region of Waterloo's land needs assessment be completed in accordance with the provincial requirements. So that's what I've asked for. Now we've got a report with a recommendation to go in a different direction, completely ignoring a motion that was passed unanimously by council. So that's why I'm asking again to come back, refer this back to committee, and have staff bring that land needs assessment that we've asked them to prepare in the next planning committee. So I'm just asking for what I've already asked for that's been approved by council.
So the difference between your view of what was passed on November 19th and Part A is the timing?
No, that before any growth scenarios, obviously they're looking to create a land needs assessment that has a desired outcome of one of the three scenarios that we've got before us. I'm asking for a proper land needs assessment be done. Baseline land needs assessment. All the municipalities, most of them in fact, as you've heard tonight, including Mayor Verbanovic, Councillor Verbanovic, their planning staff want to see that land needs assessment in order to provide proper input to the region. And so I'm asking again that we fulfill the obligation of the motion that I originally had asked for. I know we're late, and it pains me to debate this at 11 o'clock at night, but I don't believe that the motion that we've passed on November 19th is being fulfilled.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. I do see you, Councillor Foxton, but Mr. Lochner would like to weigh in, and Mr. Regier has his hand up, maybe for clarification, maybe not, and then we'll come to you.
Thank you. If the clerk can put up the current, I'll call it motion, but we can call it next steps that we're taking. Yeah. So I think I understand, Councillor Harris, what you're saying, but let me try it on. If we look at the motion last time, it was develop a land needs assessment. And in this case, it says develop a land needs assessment using 3 modified growth scenarios. So is the expectation that we develop a land needs assessment and then do growth scenarios later? I think that's what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, that's in my recommendation. Yeah. This isn't my motion that was brought forward. So.
Understood. So I think perhaps the consultants can comment on this. My understanding is to do a land needs assessment. The assessment of the need of land is different depending on the things like the density and the jobs per hectare. So I don't know that technically you can separate the two, but I'd appreciate that clarity myself.
Mr. Regier, did you want to weigh in, or Jamie or Patty? I see Danielle DeFields is here as well.
Perhaps our clerk could post the November 19th motion that we passed just so council can see it.
Okay, could that go up again?
So through you, Chair Redmond, I think Mr. Lochner has put his finger on the matter. The one additional factor here is that we were also directed at the same meeting to consider a 70% intensification and 70 persons and jobs per hectare scenario. So to do this additional work, we're simply laying out the methodology here. These are two phenomena which are thoroughly intertwined. I will ask our Jamie or Patty to clarify further, or perhaps Danielle, but certainly additional work is needed. We certainly understand and fully appreciate the importance of consulting with the area municipalities about the scenarios and about the land needs assessment as a whole as it pertains to the area municipalities' requirements. So that's something that we fully have baked into the process, and we're just seeking. We could have done this, I guess, as an update to council just for information, but we felt that would be helpful to get a little bit of direction here because there is some work and there's some additional funds required to work out the different scenarios and the land needs assessment that are related to those. So perhaps Danielle or Jamie, you might want to add further.
Danielle, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I can supplement. So in terms of the land need assessment, I would reiterate, I think one of Brenna's opening comments in terms of we are in the process. Bruce hit the nail on the head in terms of it does come down to the sequencing. And I think Jamie did speak to that earlier, but maybe he can jump in a minute just to supplement this in terms of the sequence of the different components of the LNA. We are committed to continuing to work with the local municipalities moving forward, increasing communication and dialogue, routine meetings, things like that throughout 2022 as we continue throughout the process. So we are hearing that and we will respond.
Thank you. Councillor Foxton, you've been patient.
Thank you. Boy, you guys are teaching me lessons in patience tonight, and I'm not a patient person. I think Bruce hit it on the head. That's what I wanted to say. You do the land need assessment in its entirety. You do it. And then you look at the scenarios and you say, how do they fit based upon the land needs assessment? Or do they fit? Or is there a different scenario that does fit? But you do the land needs assessment, take the information from that, and then create the scenarios that work for the region of Waterloo. Is that about right, Michael?
Yeah, exactly that.
Thank you.
Exactly that. So we can, if you want to pull up my recommendation that I put forward, that we can put this to rest.
Okay.
Or we can defer to the planning committee if we're running out of time.
I'm more worried about the process being slowed even further. So
I concur. I concur. That's why if I mean I'm moving the motion. I don't know if there's somebody that'll.
So, Councillor Harris, this is the motion that you're referring to.
Exactly. Now, I added in the written confirmation from the province endorsing our approach. I think that's important. We've gone back and forth many times about whether we're, doing that. We've heard confirmation. So I imagine if that's the case, it wouldn't be hard to get to ensure and to reconfirm to council that we're on the right path. But it's the first part that I'm concerned about. So.
Okay. We have Councillor Harris proposing a motion. We've seen it. Is there someone to second it? Councillor Jowett, are you seconding it? You are seconding it? Okay. And you may speak, yes.
This is where a lot of people have a little bit more experience than I do with the province, but I don't know that they're always excited about giving us anything in writing. Is that something we're going to have a problem with at all, or?
Who would like to comment on that?
Sorry.
Did
I can provide comment that through my work with the province through this process, we have not received anything in writing at this point in terms of the method, like any sort of specifics on the methodology. So I wouldn't expect you would receive anything on that.
So
okay. Sorry,
can we amend it?
I see Mr. Schelling lit up his square. Do you have some?
Yes, through you, Chair Edmund. I mean, I would volunteer as a former legal director at the very ministry that does this work, and I would suggest that there's probably not going to be a willingness to provide direction. I think that the ministry would guide and provide comments, but probably not provide an affirmation that the process is necessary in accordance, because the minister is the approval authority. They wouldn't want to fetter his discretion.
Thank you.
All right, we can easily pull that out. It's just something that, we go back and forth on, so I'm happy to strike that part.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Jowett, that's a friendly amendment. We'll take out the written confirmation.
Thank you.
Patty, did you want to add something?
I just thought I might provide a little bit of clarity. To complete the LNA, we do have to make assumptions. You do have to make assumptions about the densities that are going to occur in the designated greenfield area, the amount of supply available in the built-up area. And so that's why we have been proposing testing different scenarios, so that you can kind of see all the different implications based on how your assumptions of supply and how they take shape. So if we go down a path to complete one straight up LNA, we still are left with the question of what are the supply assumptions to use? How much growth are we going to have in the built up area supply? How much in the DGA? What kind of densities for our unplanned DGA are we assuming? So it's clean and easy in my mind anyway, that we can complete one LNA without understanding some of the latter steps in the LNA process around the density. And I would ask Jamie maybe to provide a bit of commentary on that as well, just so council gets a full view of where we go next if we go down a path of doing kind of this one version of the LNA.
Jamie, can you add some insight into this?
Well, as Patty's pointed out, and as we've been discussing, as we get into further detail on the localized needs, there's going to be different influences and factors that are going to influence density and intensification. And so, and there may be different combinations and ways to get to an outcome. I think you need to go through that analysis to look at those details, and you can do one scenario, but ultimately, if you do one scenario, ultimately you're likely going to have more. You're going to have more questions and considerations about the sensitivity if you make an adjustment in one area or another, and how that will ultimately impact the control total that we're ultimately trying to work towards in terms of the total density intensification that we're targeting. So I think at the end of the day, there's likely going to be a request and desire to look at different tests and scenarios. So that seems to be the direction that council has been taking, and that we have before us. So I do think if you go down the road of looking at one scenario, ultimately you're going to be back to where we are now with requests to look at additional scenarios. So I think you're going to go through a similar process and end up in the same place, whether you do it one step with one baseline scenario, as Councillor Harris has identified, and we have to ask, what is the baseline scenario? Is the baseline scenario supposed to be scenario 2, or the original scenario 2 that was recommended, or is it something else? And then once you move forward with that scenario, then ultimately, I think you're going to be back looking at different sensitivities from that. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Jamie. I think we've had lots of clarification. It seems to me like we have a bit of a circular conversation going on. And colleagues, I really did think that the police board budget would be hard. I thought our budget would be hard. I didn't anticipate this being quite as vigorous a debate. I commend all of you for your interest in your attention after a long day of meetings. It is past 20 after 11, and we are barely scratching the surface of this council meeting. So I am going to recognize Councillor Foxton, Councillor Bravanovich, and then I'm going to call the question. So Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, Chair. So there's a couple of things. Number one is we need a lands needs assessment. A land need assessment. Without a preconceived, personally, I hate when my staff want to do A, and so they get all the data to back A. I want a full, complete picture. And then I want to say, okay, what does the public think? What do the public want? What does businesses think? What do municipalities think? I want to take the lands needs assessment and they say, okay, that's not really, and warp it into what consultation provides the input for. That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be collaborating the information, bringing it together, coming out with a clean document at the end. But first comes the basic facts, which comes from an assessment, which comes from lands needs. And then we work through the process to get where we're going to be. You can't, to me, you're not doing your job if you say, we want this to happen and therefore we're going to look at the data and make it fit this. That's not open. That's not transparent. That's not inclusive. That's all I had to say, and I hope we're done soon.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Bravanovich and then Councillor Shantz, and then we are calling the question. And I will let Mr. Lochner speak at the end if he still wants to. Councillor Bravanovich.
Thanks, and I'm just going to be very short. I think much has been said. I too am just looking for that baseline. We're not the technical experts. We have consultants that are doing that. You will build that baseline. You will justify, why you used whatever, initial data you did to create that baseline. And then we will, as has been pointed out, use that to go in and consult with others and determine what the scenarios should be going forward for further dialogue and ultimate a preferred scenario to be considered. That's what what we're all looking for and what we're asking for. And I think this motion supports that.
Thank you. Councillor Shantz.
Maybe it's too late and I've had too long a day, but how can you decide how much land you need if you don't know if you're putting in 1 acre single family homes or apartment buildings that are 6 stories, 12 stories, 20 stories? I don't understand how you can tell us how much land you need if we don't tell you how dense we want to be. So, and maybe I'm dense, but and if we don't end soon, I'm going to have to leave because I'm at the office, and at some point around here, the alarms are all going to go off on me. So,
thank you very much, Councillor Shantz. I'm going to allow an opportunity for Mr. Lochner to weigh in, and then I'm going to call the question.
Thank you, and I don't think you're off base, Councillor Shantz. In order to assess how much land we need to determine what the criteria are we're basing that on. So let me suggest that we take that away. We will put forward what assumptions we used in the lands needs assessment, and then following that, we'll determine which scenarios council wants to go down the path. So I hope that meets the recommendation that Councillor Harris is putting forward. I think we have what we need to move on this.
Thank you. Do we need to see the motion one more time? Okay, I'm going to call the question. It's been moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Jowett. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. That is carried, colleagues. Thank you. And thank you to our consultants and to Danielle and Rod. And I know there's other staff that are still on as well. We'll have to be speedy now or Sandy's going to get locked in her office. The next agenda item is minutes of the previous meetings, and I'm not going to go through all of them. It's closed council, health board, as well as committee of the whole, and it is A through R. And I would, oh, look at this. Moved by Councillor Bravanovich, seconded by Councillor Kiefer. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. That is carried. Colleagues, the next agenda item is council information package that was distributed electronically. Those are all for information unless you have something you want to pull out. Councillor McGarry, is there something you'd like to talk about? Oh, you're moving?
I was going to move it.
Oh, okay. Thought maybe you're trying to get your lights on. You know how they're motion active. So you're moving a motion to go into the committee of the whole. It's moved by Councillor Kiefer. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. Okay, we are now in councils and committee of the whole, and we're considering finance reports, and we have one motion to accept all of the finance reports unless anyone has any comments or questions. And they are A through J. Okay, that's moved by Councillor Jowett, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. That is carried. We are now on to, we're going to vote to approve the summary of the Committee of the Whole from December the 7th, 2021, and one item for closed Committee of the Whole. And they are listed 1 through 6. Could I have a mover? Or are we looking at the, okay, moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor McGarry. Please use your icons to vote. That is carried, colleagues. Okay, the next item is the Economic Development Committee, which is attached. And that is that we approve a program dated, from a report dated December 8th, 2021 for $50,000 to be funded through the Strategic Investment in Business to support program costs. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Erb, seconded by Councillor Verbanovich. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. Next report is the Library Committee. And the motion is that the Library Committee recommend that the Region of Waterloo repeal 0.3 fines for overdue library books, library fines and rental fees to take effect January 1st, 2022, described in a report dated December the 8th. Cost recovery for lost or badly damaged items are not affected. Could I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Schatz. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. Thank you, colleagues. You are a speedy lot. We are now to Committee of the Whole Budget Plan and 22 Plan and Budget. We now have a vote to approve the summary of the Committee of the Whole Budget Plan that was from earlier today. The summary is up on the screen. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Jowett, seconded by Councillor Foxton. Councillor Galloway, are you voting or do you have a comment? You're voting? Okay.
Comment.
Oh, you have a comment? Councillor Galloway, go ahead.
Can we take item 7?
Sorry, you want to take item 7 separately or part of it?
The police budget. Or did I see it? Oh, coming up. I guess it's 1A.
So 1A separately, everything else together? Is that what you're requesting? Okay, so I'm going to assume that the mover and seconder are moving all of it, but we will take 1A. All those in favor of Waterloo Regional Police Services, please use your icons to vote yes or no.
You want a recorded vote?
I'm in the committee's hands. Councillor Harris, would you like a recorded vote?
Seems like they want to have one, so let's give them one.
Okay, all right. I will turn the floor over to the clerk.
Chair Redmond?
Excuse, just for one moment. Sorry, Will. Councillor Clark, did you have a comment too? Okay, go ahead.
It went by fast and it's not on the screen now, but I believe that there's a typo in it. I believe it says that the Police Services Board approved the Police Services Board's recommendation rather than Regional Council. But it's gone now, so I can't confirm that.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and I think you're getting agreement from the clerk. So errors and omissions accepted, we will correct that. So we're taking item 1A, which is the police board budget, and I will turn the floor over to the clerk.
Chair Redmond,
In favor.
Councillor Armstrong,
In favor?
Councillor Clark,
Opposed?
Councillor Erb, Councillor Foxton,
Opposed.
Councillor Galloway,
Opposed.
Councillor Harris,
In favor.
Councillor Jaworski,
In favor?
Councillor Jowett,
In favor?
Councillor Kiefer,
In favor.
Councillor McGarry,
In favor.
Councillor Nowak,
In favor.
Councillor Shantz,
In favor.
Councillor Strickland, and Councillor Urbanovic.
In favor.
Carries 10-4.
Thank you, Clerk. Now we will vote on the rest of the budget motion. Again, moved by Councillor Jowett. And who seconded it?
Councillor Foxton.
Councillor Foxton. So it will be the remainder of the budget motion. Again, does council want a recorded vote, or we can just use our icons for this? Councillor Harris.
Just when we're, I used to always have to vote for or against the budget, wasn't able to pull out things. Is the bunker in here in any one of these items?
No, we did not reconsider the bunker because you did the motion for getting 2/3 majority for reconsideration.
Right. I thought this was the second time we were dealing, third time, but if it's not a separate item, then fine. Let's get her done.
Okay, so we're just going to use our icons. Thank you. Could you vote on the balance of the budget? That is passed. Thank you, colleagues. Hang on one sec. Okay, so Mr. Brubaker is now going to share the closed summary, which we will vote on. So there are 3 items. One is the tentative memorandum of settlement with CUPE on behalf of Local 5191. The second item is executing Municipality's Waterloo Region Subscribers Agreement for Assistance Programs. And the third is an extension of a leave for Councillor Lorentz up to June 30th, 2022. Could we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Shantz. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. That is carried. Thank you, colleagues. I will now turn to a report. I believe Ms. McDonald is going to give. It's the Chief Administrative Officer's report. Welcome, Connie, and you're staying up really late tonight.
Thank you, and through the chair, to support reconciliation and in recognition of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th, and in partnership with area municipalities, Regional Council suspended rental-related fees associated with use of regional spaces to make space more accessible for Indigenous communities, to support the revitalization of their cultural customs and traditions. Staff were asked to report back on how to implement a permanent waiver of fees. The report in your package includes a recommended amendment to the region's building use policy to enable the waiver of these fees. The financial impact is estimated at $15,000 per year, which staff have indicated can be funded from the Equity Investment Fund. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions on the report or the recommendation.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the report? Very, very significant to see this and have it permanent. So you have the recommendation before you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Jowett, seconded by Councillor Clark. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. That is carried. Next is an update on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. This is for information. And I believe, Connie, you're back up for this one too.
Thank you. And again, through the chair, I'm going to be very brief as I'll be giving a more robust update and presentation at tomorrow's all council meeting. However, I wanted to provide regional council with an update on the development of the community safety and wellbeing plan. The report outlined a number of the engagement activities that are underway and a draft report feedback gathered through community consultations that have informed the development of a draft framework. With that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions related to the report.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for all your hard work and your team, Connie. I know this has been a lot of focus groups. I know that Councillor Shantz and I have been to a couple, and it's wonderful to hear the authentic voices of the community who are very forthright in telling us where the gaps are and what we need to change, and that's exactly what we would hope would happen. I do not have a report. Other matters under the Committee of the Whole, extension of the agreement with the City of Waterloo regarding the use of the Waterloo parking structure. Mr. Regier, would you like to speak to this?
Through you, Chair Redmond, I think perhaps Mr. Schelling is in a better position to speak to this agreement than I am at this stage.
Thank you. Welcome.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Chair Redmond. This matter has been a long-standing matter. It deals with the Waterloo Parkade on Willis Way, which is the responsibility for upkeep and ownership is shared with the City of Waterloo. There is an option to purchase the City of Waterloo's interest in the parkade. City of Waterloo has taken this matter to council, and I know Mayor Jaworski, Councillor Jaworski is here as well. The essence of the report is to seek an extension of 6 months on the option agreement, so that an agreement with the City of Waterloo can be worked out to either exercise the option or come to some other resolution.
Councillor Bravanovich.
Yes, I know Councillor Jaworski can be a tough negotiator, so I would be, just having gone through a hydro agreement with him, so I would be pleased to move the extension.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Please use your icons to vote yes or no on this recommendation. That is passed.
The reason's only offering $1. It must be worth at least $2.
I was going to ask Councillor Kiefer why he was voting against it, but then he changed it to positive. We've already dealt with the policy review of the official or the regional official review update. Next agenda item is a policy review of regional bylaw 13-050. Its use or occupation of regionally owned public land. And Mr. Schelling, is this you?
It is, and I know you had a long day. I'll be very brief. If I can just give a few introductory remarks, and then I'll put it over to council to consider. There's a draft policy attached to the report. The purpose of the report is to outline the results of a policy review that was conducted by regional staff following the bylaw enforcement that took place on November 26th on a regional owned property near Sterling and Charles in the city of Kitchener. Based on the review of the events on that day, it was apparent that there was a need to consider changes to the existing process. The process is set out in a 2013 bylaw that governs the use and occupation of regional lands, and that bylaw is attached to the report. It broadly applies to a wide range of activities, but does not provide specific direction in the instance of individuals who may be living rough on regional owned property. As a result, the draft policy is prepared and is attached to the report. The intention of the policy is to prioritize the safety of all concerned and ensure respect for individuals experiencing homelessness and their possessions, put greater emphasis on outreach and providing support, and enforcement being an only option where those efforts have not been successful. Thirdly, creating a centralized process for receiving information and coordinating communication with regional council and other regional departments. And lastly, elevating decision-making under the bylaw and the policy to senior managers within the municipal corporation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schelling. I know that I think Ryan Petitpierre and Aaron Rolls are, and I'm wondering if they have anything to add to this report. Aaron, thank you for hanging in, and Ryan.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Petitpierre to provide comment.
Thank you. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. And just very briefly, through Community Services, it did have significant involvement in reworking this policy and process, really from a service lens and making sure that we're doing a connection to supports as our first and most serious effort to address this issue. So that's the only piece of information that I would add, and we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you very much for bringing this report back. And I know there was an undertaking to bring it back for today, so I appreciate this report being in this policy being expedited. Councillor Erb.
Sorry, I was late getting my hand up. I just wanted to express appreciation for the sensitivity that was shown in developing the report and getting it back in such a timely manner. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erb. I will now entertain a motion for the Committee of the Whole to rise and for Council to resume. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Kiefer, seconded by Councillor McGarry. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. Okay.
Chair Redmond, didn't we have to approve that last one?
Yes, we did. Thank you so much, Councillor Jaworski. The clerk just pointed that out to me. So could we have, I guess we have to go back. So let's all, moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Councillor Erb. Thank you very much. Please use your icons, and we are approving the policy for responding to unauthorized use of regional owned or occupied land attached with the appendix. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to pretend we're doing the motion to move into Committee of the Whole. Did we do that already, Julie? Okay, we're going to do that. Okay, it's moved by Councillor Kiefer, seconded by Councillor McGarry. Please use your icons. Councillor Bravanovich, do you not want to? Okay, all right. I would now entertain a motion to adopt proceedings of the Committee of the Whole. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Bravanovich, seconded by Councillor Foxton. Please use your icons to vote. We have no motions, no notices of motions, no unfinished business. Councillor McGarry.
If I may, I have a quick notice of motion.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Whereas Myers Road in Southeast Cambridge is an area experiencing rapid growth and intensification and will soon be home to Cambridge's new recreation complex, Idea Exchange Catholic School and Public School, whereas the speed limit on Myers Road in front of Holy Spirit Catholic School and Moffat Creek Public School is currently set at 50 kilometers per hour. Whereas there's ongoing discussion concerning the future layout and design of Myers Road, whereas driver behavior within school zones continues to be an ongoing concern across the region of Waterloo, be it resolved that the speed limit on the entirety of Myers Road be lowered to 40 kilometers per hour to facilitate slower vehicular traffic in front of Holy Spirit Catholic School and Moffat Creek Public School, while the design, planning, construction, and implementation of Myers Road occurs, and further, that the Region of Waterloo staff report back to Council in 2022 on all school zones within the Region of Waterloo that do not currently have speed limits of 40 kilometers per hour.
Thank you, Councillor McGarry. This is a notice of motion, so this will come back to the January Council meeting. Thank you very much. Councillor Foxton, did you have a notice of motion? Oh, no. Okay. Thank you very much. No other notices of motions. No unfinished business. Other business? Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through the chair, at a public meeting, I had made a response that I'm not proud of. I was called out for it, deservedly so, and through being called out for it, I had some that actually taught me, and I learned to open my eyes. I'm sorry, and I regret what I did. I have learned from it. I'm still learning. I do apologize to Salem Debs. I have signed up for her course, and I look forward to taking it, and I hope to definitely improve my behavior in such ways. So I truly apologize, and I thank you for this time allowing me to say so publicly.
Thank you, Councillor Foxton. Any questions? I'd now entertain a motion to enact the bylaws for second and third readings. If I could have a mover, Councillor Erb, Councillor McGarry, seconded. Could you use your icons to please vote? That is carried. Okay, who's going to vote against this one? A motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor McGarry. Please use your icons to vote. Very productive day. Thank you for a great discussion, a variety of ideas, and demonstrating that democracy can work in a respectful manner, despite the fact that we may not all agree. Thank you, colleagues. Take the rest of the night off.
Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See you guys tomorrow.